blog, I have a friend who is Miss USA 2009, Kristen Dalton Wolfe, and she also created sheismore.com, which is a community that you definitely want to join if you haven't so already. It's someplace that you can find hope, inspiration, relationship conversations, and all these things with life that you really need to know about. So I want you to hear from my friend because she has some great advice today on confidence, identity, knowing who you are, and what it's like to be a beauty queen and also maintain true confidence. So check it out. Hi everyone, I want to thank you again for checking out the blog today. Like I said, we have a special treat. I have a special treat because I get to hang out with this lovely lady. This is Kristen Dalton Wolfe. Hello. And she is a good person to know. You're going to watch this whole interview and be amazed. She was Miss USA 2009. She's gorgeous. You can tell that she's a beauty queen. But also, she's very amazing in so many things, a great communicator and speaker. And she also started a website called sheismore.com. And I just want, before we get started, I want you to share a little bit about what your mission with She Is More is. We want to direct people there because it's such a great resource for young women. It's a huge community of 300,000 plus women that are really finding their confidence. So can you just share a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's so amazing. Well, I started out just blogging on my personal site, but I felt like God wanted to take it bigger than that. And so one night I was laying in bed and I just heard him speak to me. He said, "She is more precious than rubies," which is one of my favorite verses in Proverbs. And as I was mulling it over, he shortened it to "She Is More," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's what it is! It's sheismore.com." So I got on GoDaddy.com immediately, 3 a.m., and bought the domain. But I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with it. And then over time, I figured out that I was supposed to expand my message of just I really have a passion for women just understanding their value and their self-worth, especially before they get into relationships, because I feel like it affects not only the healthiness and productivity of a relationship, but just overall happiness and standards. Being able to set standards before you enter into a relationship, and knowing where to draw boundary lines, and having the discernment to know when you're being treated well and when you're being mistreated. So overall, sheismore.com is about just empowering women, and I have several guest contributors weekly. We have messages and devotions, prayers and declares, and awesome articles. Yeah, it's really a fantastic place. We're going to have a link also down below so you can all check it out. But just a little bit about what you talk about on your site and what you stand for. You mentioned a little bit about faith and standards and all that. And maybe for someone that's watching, they're maybe struggling with what faith is, who God is in their lives, and how do you even kind of sort through, I want to be a confident person, I want to have my identity. You said it's in God, but I don't even know God. I know that's kind of a loaded question, but can you kind of sum it up for us? Yeah, for me, kind of my personal revelation and breakthrough when it came to God being my identity was the fact that just understanding that this world defines us by what we do, and by our performance, by our accolades, by our accomplishments. It's what you do defines who you are, but in God, your identity in God, He's already created you to be amazing because you're made in His image, and He's already giving you a plan and a purpose. So rather than doing all of these things in order to define who you are, which is super exhausting, and it leads to competition and comparison and ultimately unhappiness, you get to operate from a place where you already are awesome. you are a child of God already, and so everything that you do flows through who you are rather than doing things to create who you are. If that makes sense. So there's just so much freedom in your identity and who God made you to be.
I just want to ask you, being in the whole pageant world and all of that, and you talked a little bit about comparison. I mean, it's hard enough being a high school student, a middle school student, and looking at that girl, wanting her shoes, or thinking her eyes are prettier, or whatever. What was it like being in the pageant world and dealing with insecurities? And what would you say to someone that is dealing with that comparison?
Well, it was through competing in pageants that I finally realized that the competition actually isn't against other girls. because everyone is beautiful, everyone is wonderfully and fearfully made, everyone is awesome. So you can't really compete with that because we're all different, you know? So the competition is actually within yourself. So once I realized that, and I tuned all the other girls out and everyone else out, and I just looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, you know, God's created me to be like beautiful. He says that I'm beautiful. He says that he sees no flaw in me, and so I want to be the best version of that, and I want to honor myself in the way that he made me. So so my journey was being the best version of me. The competition was against myself. You know, like, how early can I wake up to get to the gym? Like, what, you know, am I like, what is my potential, and am I living up to it? And not just like with my willpower alone, because you can't do anything through your own willpower. Everything, yeah, like it comes from like the Spirit of God that like lives inside of you, and his power, and ultimately like his destiny for your life. And when you just like follow in the footsteps that he's guiding you with, then everything just falls into place.
That's really interesting perspective, and I hope all of us kind of think about that, because I can't imagine what we all would be like if we learned that lesson when we were 11, 12, 13, and just knew I'm going to be me and I'm going to do it all the way. And I think that's so incredible. So let's kind of take that to heart and think about it. Kristen, thanks so much for sharing. You may be wondering, but is there more? Because there's so much that we talked about, so many good things that she had to share. I actually had to split it up into 2 parts. So that was part 1. Next week, you're going to see part 2, where she goes into relationships. And I tell you what, she got fired up. She has some amazing advice on not settling and going for what you want in life and in your relationship. So make sure you check out part 2. Thanks again, Kristen. Let's take her advice to heart. I'd love to hear from you on the blog, comment, whatever you want to do. And we'll see you next week for part 2.